Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we have returning guest Ant with us.
How's it going, guys?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Ant. How are you today?
Splendid.
Good.
This is episode 39 of the Mile High Game Guys.
39.
39. 39.
Ooh, I almost made it to a top 10 episode then.
Yeah,
Almost.
next week.
Yep.
It's very exciting stuff. We're all thrilled to be here.
Alexa.
No, I forgot.
Alexa, buy Blood Bowl.
Alexa, confirm.
They
So
when we were playing Keyflower the other day, they actually got her to start reading off cream corn options.
It was like, I found meadow gold,
Nice.
cream corn, and green giant cream corn. Which would you like?
in 3.5 ounce cans.
And he's just
for-
running over to unplug it.
No. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
Yeah.
That would be a mean
Confirm.
thing to do is name your D&D character Alexa. Every time the dungeon master says something.
Yep.
Alexa, roll for initiative. I roll a 20.
It's always...
How convenient.
Well, you want one. You want low.
No.
No, you want high.
I've screwed
For
this up
initiative?
before.
Yes, you have.
I've screwed this up
All the
very much
time.
before. Yes.
You want low so you can see what all the monsters are going to do first.
Yeah. Gloomhaven is high
Yeah.
as well.
No,
No,
Gloomhaven
Gloom
is low.
Yeah. You want because if you pass, you go 99.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But you're not rolling dice, you're playing cards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Different game entirely. Well, this is off to a wonderful start here.
Well, you should have unplugged it.
Yeah. you did it right the last two times. I don't know why you didn't think about it this time.
Well, normally you guys start trying to make it order shit, during the pre-show.
That's why we wanted to wait until now.
Now, yeah, we just needed to catch you off guard.
All right.
Speaking of guard,
Excellent transition, Jeff.
yes, our Blood Bowl preseason has started. People are playing preseason matches.
Hopefully.
This is with the
Hopefully.
new
Being-
teams, right?
This is fresh teams post tournament, where Paul is going to get his free fan factor for winning the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Ooh. Well, he won that anyway. It doesn't matter, yeah.
Okay.
Because we already played our first match. I forgot to give him that fan factor.
Oh, okay.
But
So everyone's getting their new teams in, and we all had to fill out a survey.
it helps keep it organized.
Yeah.
Say what team you are, and that way I can...
Did you need my
At least
blood
attempt.
type, or was that...
I just look at the pitch. It's all right.
Okay. He's got cotton swabs.
I'm sure I have plenty of cups of your tears just laying around. I can probably get it through that.
To be fair,
Lately, it's your tears, as he's been
it's my
spanking
games
you.
against other people that he has attended.
Which is why I hold the cup for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like crocodile tears. You need to save those. Mm-hmm. So people should be getting in their games soon. I don't think there's really any reports. You played Paul.
Yeah, I played Paul. We were at the condo together anyway, so it just kind of convenient. And yeah, he rolled +2 fame, so the fan factor didn't help him then. But he also, right off the bat, very first thing, rolls 2-die block, double skulls, reroll double skulls.
Nice.
Very first thing. He
a great start.
Yep.
pretty much tilted right after that.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was it. That was the whole game.
Just angry.
Everything was Adrian mode, and it was just like this doesn't make sense. You roll everything. I don't roll anything. This is stupid. This is stupid. And he was doing okay.
So, Ant, did you want to describe what Adrian sounds like?
Oh no, that was.
Oh, was that you? I thought that was Adrian talking. I wouldn't have known.
I have it on it's my ringtone.
Oh, okay.
Hate you guys.
I like that you still looked at me when you said that. And I wasn't doing anything
say
during
it's just default reaction. If you're in the room,
Right. Yeah.
you draw a significant amount of my hatred. You're like a magnet.
Yep.
So, what are you playing this season?
Chaos Dwarfs.
Chaos.
actually.
Oh, Chaos Dwarfs.
Yeah, I was real hoping that someone else would pick another team so I can play a second team as well. But
What's our team? Are we at 16?
We're at
even
12.
12. Okay.
yeah, there was a lot of people that showed interest, and then when it came down to it, they're like, yeah, I don't know.
That 4 hours every 2 weeks commitment must be real tough for some people.
I mean, I feel like most people are playing pretty quick lately, though. Once you put a couple drinks in there, whatever. That's half Blood Bowl, half drinking time. That doesn't count.
That's why whenever I show up and play Ant, I have a pint of Big Bad Baptist waiting for me.
With the rest of the bottle sitting right by your side.
I'm starting to play better drunk.
Yeah, there you go.
It's backfiring.
Yeah.
You've learned to just trust yourself in that. You don't overthink it or anything.
I've stopped dodging. Is what I've done.
He's like, I don't really want to pick anybody else up. I'm just gonna sip another beer.
Yep. Then Paul's Orcs.
Yep, Paul's Orcs.
Okay.
So it's his same exact team from the tournament where he won first place.
And I will be playing my exact same team that I won second place, which is also Orcs. And a mirror copy of Paul's team.
But without the skills.
Without the skills, yes. Because
Gotcha.
it's a new season. Yeah, so we'll have more preseason hot news coming in soon. I think we have preseason until, when's the first scheduled match?
The first scheduled match is, it's like the week. It starts the week of Easter, but it lasts for 3 weeks.
Okay, so we're looking at the
Something like that. The 15th or...
April 16th.
Yeah, that.
We'll start season 4.
Yep. And
the-
that'll go pretty hard. There's 2 divisions this season.
Yes, we have enough people to do divisions this year.
Oh.
So it actually goes faster that we have more players.
Right.
Because now you have to play less games. And then 2 people from each division will go into playoffs. Instead of us playing 11 rounds, we each play 5 rounds. And then we immediately go to playoffs.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have a playoffs this year.
So that's, those seasons are much quicker then.
Yeah.
So season 5 is already landing in June, something like that, July.
Okay.
So it's the first time I've ever played anything with a division, and I'm excited.
Are they just like Division 1 and 2 or?
Division North and Division South, basically.
Yeah, I got to look. I'd named something silly after something someone said.
Gotcha.
I don't want to say it yet.
Doesn't want to lock it in.
Gotcha.
Yep. So that's Blood Bowl. It's
Right
exciting preseason.
It's been a few weeks since we had a bloody minute.
Yeah.
I'm sure that somebody is excited to listen to it.
We had hot details about divisions and Paul being
I'll get
shitty
crushed.
about So I have to play a rematch against Ant, and I have to play a match against Paul. Paul wants to play me because we need a first, second place.
Oh, yeah.
Like end of Rocky 1. I don't remember which one.
Yeah,
End of
Rocky 2, they did the rematch.
Yeah. Ding ding, and they throw, and then it freeze frames.
Yeah.
That's what. Then we'll just sit there freeze frame for 3 hours and then go home.
Or you could just take a picture right at the beginning and then you could just leave. You don't have to wait the whole 3 hours.
You know, it's the commitment.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Jeff is very committed.
Yeah.
So, Zach, what have you been playing?
So there's a game I've been wanting to get for a while called Hanamikoji, which basically means 21 flowers, I think, in Japanese.
Okay.
And so this is a two-player card game where you're trying to vie for control over these like geisha masters things.
I'd say influence more than control, but
Well, yeah, influence is probably a better word. And so
favor, maybe? 'Cause
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's actually favor with favor
It
tokens.
is, yeah. And so basically, you have all these cards that you're playing, and the geishas have a number on them, and that represents their charm points, I think, whatever it's called.
Geishas are charming.
Yes.
Their lore.
Yeah, and like some only had 2, and others had 5, and that also means how many cards there are in the deck. And so whoever plays the most cards of a given, geisha, that's how you get the favor for her. And you have these like 4 tokens right in front of you that determine the things you can actually do during the game, which is just you place one face down and you're going to play that. You discard some. You choose 3, and then your opponent gets one of those 3 and gets to play it down, and then you get the other 2 that are left, and then the other one is you get 2 piles of 2, and they choose one and you choose one. And so you're just trying to get either 4 out of the 7 geishas, not control, favor, yeah, or 11 charm points total.
In the good graces of.
Yes. Yeah. And then you just keep playing rounds until that one of those things happens.
Okay.
And it takes 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I saw you playing it, but I did
Yes.
not get an opportunity.
I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a lot thinkier than you'd expect it to be.
Oh, yeah.
Played Adrian once, and I could see a little bit of that smoke starting to come out at
Smoke
the
coming
end.
out. Brain.
Yeah, the good kind of smoke. It was one of those, like, there was one round in particular where I did, of the 4 actions, I did, like, one of the first ones was the play 3 and let Zach take 1. And then I did a different one. But, like, he managed to keep putting off ever showing any cards. So, like, I knew that his last couple I would start getting a lot, but he already had a bunch on the table. And I was like, I still don't know what he actually has. And it was tormenting me trying to decide what I should do with my remaining cards to try and win.
Yeah.
I did manage to win, though. So that was pretty awesome.
Like, one thing I really like is that, so say you get control of the, or you
Influence.
Favor. Good graces. I keep needing other words that I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
When you get the influence of the 5 geisha, that if you get it the next turn, if we were playing Jeff and then we ended up tying on 5, I would still retain control of the 5. So it doesn't reset after each round. Mm-hmm. So whatever control you had.
You just love controlling the geisha.
Apparently, yeah. The influence. That stays for each round depending on if it doesn't change, then it stays exactly how it is.
Okay.
So it is interesting to have to figure that out. So
yeah, it was really nice with the 2s. Once you had their favor, as long as you got to play one of those cards, you were guaranteed to keep it because they can't. The best they could do is tie.
Yeah,
and that doesn't change anything. So I thought those were kind of crucial for me anyway. I know the way I ended up winning, having those ones and only being like, all right, well, I know I'm not going to lose those. I can focus my efforts elsewhere.
Yep,
was huge. So
yeah, that one was fun. I liked it a lot.
The art is amazing. I really like the art on it. So
yeah,
right on. That was
Hanamikoji.
What about you? Have you been playing anything else besides Blood Bowl?
I've been playing a bunch of Vast lately.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you play that game night.
So it's been getting progressively even better. So I liked it at first, and as we're starting to realize a couple rules we missed up and getting to play the different roles, it kind of is starting to come together now. It's kind of hard since we've still played it with new people each time.
Have we gone over Vast's genre before?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of game it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of different. Everyone has their own different role. So
yeah,
and there's 8, 9.
There's 5.
5.
Five in the base game.
Yeah,
the expansion that will be coming out from the newest Kickstarter adds some.
Gotcha.
Which will come out in November.
Yep.
Okay.
Which I'm kind of regretting not getting already, but there's still going to be opportunities to get them later.
Yeah.
But the one thing I did do on that was I played the cave right after you had played it. And I think there's a bunch of things in there that you were missing. Like rotating tiles is key. You can rotate.
I was rotating tiles like crazy in the second game I played. The one I did the worst on.
Once I did it, I was manipulating the knight to expose a lot more tiles. So it worked out really well for me. And then the rule I think we messed up is the dragon, in order to wake up, has to go all the way to a
we messed it up both games.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's also pretty big because basically they stayed asleep until they were right next to the ladder and then just woke up and jumped out of the cave. So
right. Which is another thing that the cave can do to give them more time once the dragon wakes up is try and put those crystals out on the ends, which you want anyway, because that way when it collapses, you can hopefully collapse them right away.
Yeah.
But yeah. And that was the first foam core I made, so I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, came out real good.
It made that huge stack of tiles a lot easier to manage.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yes, inserts are mandatory.
For lots of games.
Yes.
And I really wish somebody would do one for the colonists. It could use one pretty bad.
I'm glad that Gloomhaven one came out real snappy because that game needs an insert.
It does.
And their insert, Meeple Reality? Realty. Like a realtor.
Yes, but for meeples.
But for meeples. It's a fantastic looking insert. I am very excited for that massive box to have something to contain its...
So it'll be even heavier.
Yes.
Yeah. I played a couple new games. On Wednesday at game night, Edward and Matt from Heavy Cardboard, they came down to game night, and we played Rhine River Trade, which is a pick up and deliver style game. Zach's already getting glassy-eyed.
He's just staring at a fish tank.
Basically, in this game, you are taking contract cards to deliver a certain amount of your goods to a specific town, and you start at the bottom of the Rhine at a city. I don't remember which city it is, but it's marked as 0, and then you can ship all the way as far up as England, which is 14, and depending on which city you're shipping to, they have you can ship by truck, which moves just a short distance, but can stop at every city. Train, which moves a little bit faster, but is limited on where it stops. Boats, which are a little bit faster, but even more limited on where they stop. And then planes, which are the fastest, but can only stop at 4 places along the way. And you have to kind of use various combinations of those to move your goods to the various cities to deliver them and then earn money. And it was a bunch of fun. I liked it a whole lot, except for at the very end on the last round, I took a new contract, which if you don't fulfill your contract, they're negative points. And if I had planned a little bit better, I would have realized that I didn't need to take that. And in fact, it would have been impossible for me to fulfill it. And it ended up costing me the victory. I would have won if not for taking that card in the last round.
Womp womp.
So what makes it the end of the game? Is there something that happens in the game, or is it number of rounds?
Oh, man, I'm trying to remember.
It was game night.
It was game night, and I had been drinking.
Fiction.
Shocking.
But is it like Ticket to Ride where someone runs out of something?
No, it was. I'm pretty sure it was number of rounds. You play a
So you
set
just
number of
straight
rounds.
screwed it up. You're like, I
Was it
have
number
no
of
time to
rounds?
do this.
Well, I knew it was
Let's get
the
some
last
negatives.
round, but I thought like the card I drew was one of the ones that you could fly the plane to and land right there in one turn. So I thought I'd be able to fulfill it in one turn. But I think Edward or Matt, one of them filled up the plane. And so it had no more cargo space, so I couldn't get my goods onto the plane to get there.
So you took a shot at it, though.
Yeah.
It was a possible thing. It's just you didn't.
Yeah. But if I had really paid attention, I would have realized that I
Didn't even
didn't
need
need
it.
it to win, period. I could have just left it alone and been in a solid spot for winning, which didn't happen. But it was a good game. I liked it. And then the other game that I got to play recently that I want to talk about, yesterday, Megan was back in town for the weekend, and so her and I and Jeff and Paul and Manny came over and we played Keyflower.
First time.
Yeah, so 5-player game of Keyflower. I really like that game.
So it's not really a worker placement.
No, I'd say it's still worker placement. You just
Yeah.
don't have your own set workers.
No, because people steal them if you use them.
There's 3 different worker colors, but everybody has access to all 3 of them, and you use them to take actions on tiles or bid for tiles in the center area to then like add on to your little colony that you're building up. It plays out over 4 seasons, and so at the start of the game, you get a random set of 8 workers, and then at the end of each round in spring, summer, and fall, you get new workers who come on the boats. Then you get to use those, and then the last round, you use the boat tiles like they've got like final scoring objectives, and so you bid to get to claim one of the boats and its final scoring objective.
Yeah. Each season is interesting because each season sort of has a theme of stuff. Like the first season, spring has a lot of resources on it. Fall has a lot of like victory point stuff on it.
Well, summer has a lot of like worker stuff on it.
Yeah.
And then fall is a lot of victory point
Yeah.
stuff.
And then winter, everyone starts with 2 in their hand, and then you can put 1 or 2 into that last pool. You don't have to put both. And then that winter season is made out of everyone's options.
And the winter tiles are all like end game victory conditions. So
there's a lot of auctioning in that game.
lots of it. And it can get brutal.
Yep.
Jeff cost Manny like 20 odd points
He got
in the last round.
He got last place pretty hard.
Yeah, it ended up being 56, 50, 50, 48, 28.
Yeah.
That's a difference.
Yeah. and it was if Jeff was one of the 50s. If he hadn't screwed Manny would have got like 20 more points and been right up there around 50.
I
And
probably
Jeff-
would have gotten last.
Jeff would have, but he would have been last at like 44. So
Yeah.
it would have been really tight if it wasn't for that last second.
and-
Fuck you.
There was a more efficient option I had to get one of the green dudes, which is like a limited pool. And that cost me 6 points, which I probably would have beat Adrian by 1.
Yeah, it was a
Had I seen-
really
yeah,
tight game.
There's a lot of spinning plates in that game of looking at everyone's areas and all the auctions and what direction all the auctions are, so you know who has what. Because the colors don't matter to the player; they're just like what color you have to use on there as well.
Yeah, and every tile in the game you can play on. So like I can play on Jeff's tiles, he can play on mine. We can play on the tiles that are for bidding in the center.
Yep.
So you can do
The
a lot.
boats are the only thing you can't play on.
Yeah, and turn order and stuff. But you can bid
Yeah.
on
you
even
just-
the things you can't actually play on. You can bid
Yeah.
on. It's a lot going on. It was a whole lot of fun. I liked it a lot. I want to play it some more.
Yeah, I would like to play it with less players.
I think 4 is going to be a pretty good number, and then I want to try it as a 2-player game.
Yeah, I heard
What
it's
is the play 2 range?
It plays 2
to
to
6?
6.
yeah. 5 is just too many to keep track of what everyone has on all of their boards, and
And there's just a lot of downtime waiting for 4 other players to take their turn because you don't
Yeah.
really do anything when it's not your turn besides playing your turn.
And you can still play on places that actions have already taken place. You just need to put more on there, and there's a lot to think about. It's a heavy game.
Yeah. But
It was good, though.
I liked it a whole lot. I got it for my birthday, and I'm real glad I finally got it to the table. Jeff, did you play anything else you want
I
to talk
played
about?
another round of Unfair. We've talked about Unfair before, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Unfair is still really good. We played with an unsleeved copy that had the crazy cut different themes, and it's really hard to shuffle cards that aren't all the same size.
Yes, that's why they said to sleeve it, and that is why I sleeved my copy.
Yeah. Adrian, sleeve your copy.
Oh, it was my copy you played with?
Yep.
I had it separated into the two sides, and the first time I was going to play, I wasn't going to play with, I have 2 decks that are longer, and the rest are all the same. And even though it's not the starting setup, I was totally going to play with a different setup to
The
not
gangster
have that
and the
issue.
ninja.
Yep.
Yeah. We didn't have Gen Con, so no one ran away with the game.
That's good.
Yeah, it's still a super fun game.
Gotcha.
I like it a lot. Paul was trying to steal my vending machine, and I fought so hard for it because I guess there's only one vending machine or something, or he couldn't find it in the discard deck, the draw deck. He was searching for another one.
It might just be one only.
And he went all in on trying to steal my vending machine. I was like, nope. But it was on one of his contracts that he needed a vending machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Unfair is super good. Everyone needs one.
Right on. All right. Anything else anybody's been playing they want to talk about?
I got one more. I totally forgot. So
Okay.
I started another Pandemic Legacy.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Yes.
And you guys got boned real hard,
I
didn't you?
had to immediately text you about it because
I saw the picture.
on our first play, we got 5. On our 5th turn, we drew the Epidemic. On our 6th turn, we drew the Epidemic.
Oh,
Ouch.
back
We
to
went a
back.
couple turns, and then we drew another back-to-back Epidemics.
Oh my God.
Did they forget to shuffle?
No. They was on the bottom of the stack and then the top of the stack.
Wow.
And then, so we won with the Outbreak marker at 7 on the last turn. So we immediately played another game because the events changed. We had a slightly different stack. We had back-to-back Outbreaks again. And we won with the Outbreak marker on 6 on the last turn. We played a third game, same thing. We got another back-to-back with the Outbreak marker on 6 and won the last turn.
Jesus.
We got boned so hard early and then somehow managed to get a win on there. And
Yeah.
our board is, it's bad.
It's already
It
super
sounds bad.
It's already
There's
super
scars
fuckers.
all over the place. There's
That's
There's
crazy.
a lot of numbers on that board. So yeah.
Okay. Nice. All right, and I have technically 2 more games, but so I played Clank for the first time.
Oh, yeah. Because I was going to play that, and then I gave it up for
Yes.
some new people at game night, especially because I knew Edward was coming.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that one, it's a deck building game, but it also has you're sort of exploring a dungeon, and it has a push your luck aspect to it too. I really enjoyed it because basically you're just trying to explore a dungeon, but there's a dragon that's sleeping underneath, and then
Dungeons and Dragons?
crazy, I know.
Whoa, now.
And so you have these bad cards in your hand that basically make noise.
Okay.
And then every certain amount of time when you draw a card that has a dragon on it, you take all the noise that you've made. So you have these wooden cubes you just put.
Hence the name Clank.
Exactly. And you put all those cubes into a bag, and then you draw from the bag a certain amount of them. And then if it's your thing, you take damage. And then if you take 10 damage, you die.
Gotcha. Who brought that?
It was Kyle from Sounding Board Games.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to play it for a while, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I now want to play it.
Yes.
So,
A deck building Dungeons and Dragons game. Oh yeah, no problem.
Yep.
it always sticks out in my mind about Clank. I listened to What Did You Play This Week podcast, and Brandon, one of the main founder of that podcast, basically.
Yeah.
Him and his wife Prinza play it a lot, and apparently Brandon is super dad jokey because he always talks about on there that whenever they play and somebody draws a Clank card, he goes Clank, Clank, and it drives his wife nuts.
Nice.
It drives me nuts too.
And it's hilarious to me.
Well, and,
So.
it's nice too because not only do bad cards have it, but really good cards have Clank as well. But then you have some like the Elven Cloak that is -2 Clank because you're being all stealthy because it's Elven.
And hide better.
Yes. And then at some point, once somebody gets back to the top, gets to the top of the map, a timer starts, and then the dragon starts going crazy, and you have to. Everybody else has to escape before you die. And one of the people we were playing with died on the bottom half of the dungeon, so they don't get any points at all. Basically, they're just lost to time. Because the top half, the villagers will be like, "Oh, we'll still get his body," But yeah, if you're down in the depths, they're like, meh, fuck it.
It's that last 500 feet on Everest.
Exactly.
Like, you fall, you're done.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Your corpse becomes a waypoint for future travelers.
Yes. But yeah, I really
Wear bright clothes.
I really enjoyed that one, and I think the game that I enjoyed even more was Ponzi Scheme.
Something about like, yeah, I got this much money, but I owe way more money.
Yes. So I mean, basically, what it is you have all these like investors. So you're trying to basically pay people money, and the person that goes bankrupt first, that signals the end of the game. When you just can't pay out your investors anymore, and then it's whoever has money after that, basically.
Wait, so are the other players the investor? Like
No,
you're getting
no,
it?
no. So everybody's running their own Ponzi schemes.
Okay.
And so you have this board that has a bunch of investors that have cards, and so it'll be like they'll give you $12, but then on round 5 you owe them $10, and then every single round 5 from now on, every single 5th round you'll owe them $10 forever until you lose. And then you only got $12, so you can only pay them maybe once. And then so you have to start taking more, and then like the higher ones are called like bear ones. It's like you got 72 money, but every 3rd round you're gonna have to pay 170 to them.
Sounds like a lot like a Ponzi scheme.
Yes. Okay. And then technically you're buying industries too, and then you can trade them with people to try and get more money to be able to pay your investors. But if you get enough of those bear investors on there, you can crash the market, and that means instead of moving it once and then paying so you move it once and you pay all the ones on 1 now, you would move it twice and then have to pay all the ones on 1 and then all the ones on 2.
Okay.
And
that sounds bad.
I crashed the market so that someone had to pay over $300 that I know they did not have. And I ended up winning that one, but I really enjoyed that one. And I liked
As an accountant.
Yes, well, yeah. But it says 60 to 90 minutes, but really if someone played it wrong, it could be over in 20 minutes. Because as soon as anybody runs out of money, game's over. Because if they buy your industry when they're expecting you to sell it or something like that, they're like, oh no, I don't have money now. This is not good at all.
Been there.
Yeah, and it comes with paper money, but it comes with like money that looks like European money, and
It's well printed.
Yeah, it's
not
well
just
printed.
bright.
It's European paper money.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it makes
exactly.
it better?
No,
There's printing on it that makes it look like money.
Yeah,
and less like Monopoly.
yes, it's double-sided. So.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But no, it actually feels good to the touch, and you have this leather envelope that you like put it into when you're doing trades and stuff like that.
Looks like they put some effort in.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
So yeah,
Maybe the best paper money?
I don't know.
Besides
I still like
Millennium
Blades.
Blades,
That's
yeah.
just its own thing.
Yep, it's true.
So that's it.
Right on.
That's it. It's all over.
Banter has been completed.
Indeed. So for news and Kickstarters, we only have one small piece of news. Cool Mini or Not had their painting competition.
Oh yeah, the
This-
silver brush
The
awards.
Crystal Brush.
Crystal Brush, actually,
It was
was.
at Adepticon in Chicago. I had a couple friends go. I had a friend win a gold medal in the chibi category.
Ooh, Adrian's
It was a
favorite.
really good paint job on a really not my type of mini.
Yeah. It was a Davy Jones, like Pirates of the Caribbean chibi miniature. But he got first place in the chibi category.
Okay.
So go, Mark.
Every time we go to Gen Con, I try to go upstairs and see his
Yeah.
paintings.
Yeah.
Awesomely painted mini.
They're
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Everyone is way better than me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But you
Yeah.
have 3 colors now.
There's 3 whole colors on those orcs.
What?
Whoa, Jeff. Slow down.
They're not good, but
No, I got a dry brush and ink still.
It's the fact that they're there.
They're
That's
there.
what's important.
You know, the base is down.
Yeah. They look a lot better than all of my miniatures, that's for sure.
On to Kickstarters. Which one would you like to start with, Adrian?
Let's start with the Grimm Forest. This one is coming from Druid City Games. It's also pretty well funded. It's at 153,000 of its 35,000 goal. It's almost 3,000 backers, and it's got 17 days to go. So you still got a little over 2 weeks to check this out. Essentially, it's a 2 to 4 player game where you are 3 little pigs or 4 little pigs or however many people are playing, and you're trying to build your 3 houses of straw, wood, or brick before everybody else. It plays out in 2 phases. There's a gather phase where you go to one of 4 locations to get resources, and then a build phase where you use those resources to potentially build up on your houses. The kind of interesting thing is the 4 locations, if you're the only pig that goes there, you get all the resources. But if other people go there, then you all end up splitting the resources. So it's kind of like a bluffing game, like about trying to figure out where everybody else is going to go so that you go somewhere else. Then it has like fable cards and stuff that you can play that are other characters from like Grimm's fairy tale type stories.
So we should say it's Grimm, like with 2 M's, like the fairy tales.
Yeah. And they can come in and join out and help you out in different ways. Like, for instance, the Snow White phase, everyone at your location must give you a card of their choice from their hand. Stuff like that. I think the artwork's pretty fantastic. It's got some little like player minis that are little sculpted pigs, and like the houses are little stackable like plastic houses. All of that
Molded?
I think is molded. That's the word.
Yep.
All of that I think might be a little bit excessive for this type of game. I think it would have been fine if they had cut the cost down a little bit and
No
used
Santorini.
cardboard stuff. Yeah, it's not like Santorini where the stacking is important to the gameplay. So I think they could have done without that. It'll make it look cool.
Yeah.
And
Yep,
whatnot.
The art looks good.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, though, that I've seen about this game, and so this kind of came up with, I think it was it One Deck Dungeon that had all of the characters in it be females?
Yes, I think it was
And
that
it
one.
pissed a lot of people off.
Stupid people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, there's not any dudes in here. I can't play this game if there's no dudes.
Oh, no.
So this one is having a similar thing. So like Snow White, they drew her like looking vaguely Asian, and like Little Red Riding Hood, they made black. And people are like, oh, these are European fairy tales. They're supposed to be white people.
It's the same people that got mad that Idris Elba was in Thor. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
But-
Vikings are white. So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Twitter, it's half people bitching about people who are throwing a fit about that, and then everybody else loving on the art, because the art is absolutely fantastic.
Internet.
Yep. Thank goodness for Twitter. You'd never find out about ridiculous people who get offended about stupid things.
It's true.
No, you still have Facebook and all the other
And Reddit
internet.
and
every internet.
Yeah. What we
but-
should really be thinking is social media.
Yes. But I think the artwork looks pretty cool. It is $49 to pledge for a full copy and all the stretch goals. And it is estimated for delivery in December. So maybe in time for Christmas if you're fortunate. So check that out.
Indeed. And then we move on to the most exciting game of all.
So
I'm already on my phone.
I'm not even
paying
going to
attention.
pretend that this one is super exciting for most people. But 18CZ, an 18XX game, went up on Kickstarter a little over a week ago and actually funded really quickly. It's at 38,000 of its 11,000 goal. Has 22 days. It's an 18XX game. Like, it's very much, if you're into 18XX, then you'll be interested in this. If you're not, then you won't be. And that's totally fine. I just think it's kind of cool that something, in a very niche corner of the board gaming hobby succeeded at funding in a relatively short time and is having some successes. So props to them. So if you like 18XX games and you aren't already aware of 18CZ,
Get your train on.
yes, go check it out.
What's the pledge level on that one?
It is 78 euros for the pickup option at Eschenspiel. And it's 78 euro plus shipping, which they don't list what shipping would be.
Are these
Why is it so
18XX
much?
games so expensive? Usually this expensive?
Because they take a lot of time to design and make, and
They delivered by train.
they
That
Train
makes
is very
sense.
cheap to deliver by, to be fair.
Well, no, but they have like 2 people that are delivering it too. So
With the coal,
yeah,
it's because
that's
it's
what I was
coal-fired train.
It's
Yes.
the one where they're like the seesaw.
The
in
hand
middle.
cart. Yes.
and I mean it's one guy in Austria, like
Okay.
kind of put
Okay.
this
Yeah,
together. Like
Small guy.
How's he going to take a train here then?
Yeah.
Sir.
I
a
don't
C
know.
train.
That one from Back to the Future.
Oh God, no.
We don't talk about that one.
That was
But yeah, so there we go. That wraps up our news and Kickstarter
Indeed.
stuff for the day.
On to the review.
On to the review. So this week we are going to be reviewing both Power Grid and Power Grid the card game, and then we'll do a little bit of a discussion and comparison of the two and try and figure out, if you need to own both of them, if they both are good, all that stuff. So,
Spoiler alert.
spoiler alert.
They're both good.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So we're going to start things off here with Power Grid. This was released in 2004 by designer Friedman Friese. It plays 2 to 6 players, lists a playing time of 120 minutes, and it's been published by a whole bunch of people. Most recently, I think in the U.S., Rio Grande published it. Zach, you got a rules breakdown for us?
Yes. All right, so Power Grid has you and your opponents trying to supply the most cities with power. In the auction phase, players will be bidding for power plants in turn order, with the most expensive plants producing more energy. Then in the resources phase, you will be buying in reverse turn order coal, oil, garbage, and uranium, depending on what your plants require. Next is the build network phase, where in reverse turn order, you can expand your network into new cities. Finally is bureaucracy, where you'll spend resources to bring power to your connected cities, receiving money based on how many cities you can power. As you play through the game, you will be able to have access to other cities occupied by your opponents, albeit at a higher cost. And then once someone has reached the required amount of connected cities, it will become the last round. You'll then power as many cities as you can, and whoever powers the most is the winner.
And yeah, that's Power Grid.
I love Power Grid.
I do as well.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite all-time games.
I had played it once a long time ago before we decided to do this review, and I've played it more recently, and I actually also really like Power Grid. I think it's a pretty solid game.
I taught you your first game, and I lost you by accident because I.
Oops.
Well, I powered 17, and he had powered 18. I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that as an option.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Telling people how we feel about the game.
First impressions going into it.
Sure.
We have all played this game a lot. I have played this game long before I knew any of you. This is one of my oldest games that I've owned, and I have loved it ever since I first played it.
Okay, Zach, what do you think going into this game?
I don't know when I first learned this one. I think I've played this a handful of times, and recently I just played it again because I know we were doing this review and I wanted a refresher course.
Right.
But it's not a complicated game, so it's something that you can just, after not playing for a year and a half, it's just like, oh, okay, I got it.
This is how this game works.
Yes.
It occurs to me that not only did you teach me Power Grid, you also were the first person to teach me Agricola. So I basically owe you for my love of heavy Euro
Not
board
trains.
games.
Not trains.
Not trains.
But yeah, I bought Agricola and Power Grid as my first modern games. Because that was those two and Game of Thrones. And then we played Power Grid a bunch when I first got it. And then I didn't get to play it for a while. I taught you. And then I played twice more that month. And then I didn't play it until now again. And you guys are reviewing it. I was like, yes, add me to every text group you can do. Power Grid, Power Grid, Power Grid.
So components for this game. Let's jump
Paper
into
money.
Paper money.
Paper money's pretty bad, too.
Yeah. Paper money sucks. It sucks to organize. It sucks to hand out to everyone every turn. It sucks to hide it from everyone because it's secret information. It's no bueno.
No bueno, yeah. Do you still have paper money in your copy?
Yeah, I've been looking this week for a replacement, and I'm trying to find some coins with lightning bolts and electricity
The
shit
electro
on it.
symbol from the game.
I feel like I've seen some with that or something similar
I'm
to
sure
it.
someone has made an electro symboled metal money or something.
Oh, yeah. I've seen cardboard ones. I haven't seen metal ones yet.
Oh, okay.
Besides that, there's not much components to it. It's sort of the board,
It's
the
Euro
paper
style,
money,
yeah.
the resource tokens.
Now, speaking of the resource tokens, both of you guys have the one that's actual, the resource tokens are shaped like various resources. Or no, you both have the cube ones.
They don't have the...
No, I have the resource ones.
I don't think they have the deluxe, though.
The deluxe one's the weird-looking one. The new
Yeah.
detailed ones.
So, but neither of you have the deluxe. You have the ones that
No,
are...
and I think the deluxe, the resource tokens are the only thing that's different besides
Yes.
some art
It's
and
bigger.
stuff like
I think it's
that.
bigger, too, the board.
Yeah. But the gameplay-wise,
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
no difference.
No.
If you're going to get the deluxe or the regular, it depends on how much money you want to spend. That's the only difference.
The only thing I would say about the resources is if you are not paying attention, you are going to end in that game and you are going to be missing oil drums because those roll off the table so easily.
They do. It is ridiculous.
Round cylinders.
It's immediate.
Black round cylinders.
Yeah. So I got that. I got the broken token divider for it to keep the oil on the table. But then I got new boards and now they don't fit those. So that didn't help.
Ouch.
Womp womp. Yeah, components are components.
Yeah.
It's an older game, too.
Yeah,
So
at 2004, yeah. There's brown, black, yellow, and red.
nowadays,
German style game,
Yeah.
that's the standard. So
these aren't scythe level components.
The board is double-sided,
Yes.
So you have a U.S. board and a Germany board.
Right out the gate.
Yep.
The artwork on it is...
I like it. It's colorful. It tells the information it needs. It's very caricature. This is a caricature of a power plant.
Yes.
It's kind of exaggerated.
Yeah, it feels a little bit dated, but I don't. It doesn't. I'm like, whatever. It's not offensive.
It holds.
so-
It holds up today
Right on.
for a game that
The
came out in
maps look
2004.
really good too.
Yeah. What's that?
The maps look really
Yeah,
good.
the maps
They are
look good.
really well laid out. You can
Yeah.
easily see connections and the cost between them and the cities and all
Yeah.
of that. So the maps are really well laid out. Right on. So move on from there. Rules and rule explanation.
This rule book sucks.
It's rough.
Yeah, if you're learning the first time with no one else that has ever played this before, the rule book is just so intricately detailed that they confuse the shit out of you. Like when you get to that last phase, what you have to do during that phase, and it could be laid out a little better.
Trying to find where it even describes that phase is hard in itself.
Yeah, like does this happen at the beginning of the turn or during the bureaucracy phase? I don't remember.
Yeah. What happens if the phase 3 card is revealed when you burn a card at the end of the round or when it's revealed in the middle of an auction? Like, how do they...
on those points, they're very detailed, but where it's set
Finding it in the rule book
it's
is
so
hard.
confusing. It's
I wish I had Control F for that rule book.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a great feature for pretty much every rule book, but yeah, especially Power Grid. Now, so
Besides that, the game itself
Yeah.
is pretty.
I've never taught it.
Yeah.
You know how you taught it to me way back in the day, Jeff. I'm assuming you've taught it to a bunch of people.
I
How do
have.
you guys feel it? How does it teach?
The game is way easier to learn when someone has gone through the hardcore swamp quagmire of going through the rule book and learning stuff. Have someone that knows how to play. Don't go into this fresh without watching a video or going through one. I think, Ant, you had found like a nice cut down version of the rule book.
Yeah, I usually go on Board Game Geek and try to find that like cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw that cheat sheet. It looked really nice.
Yep.
I think it's pretty easy to actually explain to people.
Yeah.
I mean, the auctioning straightforward, the playing on the board straightforward, the costs are straightforward. The only thing that's confusing is when things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in what order?
And if one person can tell you what the order is, then you're good.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
The only other slightly
Everything is
confusing.
straightforward.
The only other confusing thing I've seen is the tube cost, the connection cost. People don't really like understand that sometimes, but that's
Yeah.
more of a player to player thing.
I think the bigger thing there that I've noticed some new people don't quite realize is that if you're kind of cornered in one corner, you can spend the connection cost through like 4 cities to get to the other side of the board.
Yeah.
To where there's some open space.
It's just
if
very
you
much
need to.
cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
That is the word.
Yep.
Personally, back when I don't remember there being any issues back when I learned it, I don't know, 3 years ago, probably 4 years ago. And like Zach said, playing it again here for the review, it all comes right back. There wasn't a whole lot where it was like, wait, no, I don't get it. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on from there, gameplay.
So one other slightly confusing part is even with max players, you don't use every section on the board.
That is correct.
There are 6 colored sections on the board, and you choose 5 that you want to use. That part I was always like, why can't you ever use all the board? But it's understandable with how many players or sections and cities and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a balance reason why you can't use it all, but you always have to explain to someone like, oh yeah, we're not using this one.
Yep.
It's like, there's no northwest coast of America, just so you know.
I don't know if I ever knew that. I never played 6-player.
Yeah. When we were looking up the rules, because we were looking at, I was seeing how many it was for 5, and it said 5, and then I looked at 6, and it still said 5, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's surprising.
I wonder if it's like that for some of the other maps.
Yeah, I don't know.
All the other maps are very different.
Do any of the Power Grid maps like player count specific? Like I know Ticket to Ride does that sometimes.
I don't think so.
They
There might be, but
there are maps that are better for certain player counts, but you can play 2 to 6 on any of them.
Okay, all right.
I don't think that any of them said you have to play less, but some of them are a lot closer and the markets are a lot tighter. That makes it a better 4-player game.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't think anything restricted it.
Right. So we'll talk about the expansion maps a little bit more here shortly. Base gameplay, I think that the auction round, like all the rounds are pretty tight, really. Like the auction round bidding for the
There's always-
factories can get really cutthroat.
there's always a standard set that you'll have out there. There's always a first 8 and then a ninth is always on the top of the deck, so you always know what that first 9 are.
Yeah. I do like how they handle the auction, that whoever's in lead bids, they have to choose one of those 4 first, and then if they don't win, if someone else wins, they get to choose another one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in first player, like I saw happen to Jeff a couple times, and they're just 4 garbage ones, and then he's just like, I could just pass, or I'll bid this and hope, and everyone's just like, pass, and he's like, no, crap.
Yep. This is the power plant I have.
Because the 33 green energy is that 5th
right
one
around the corner.
We just want it to come down.
Yeah. Yep. Because you have 8 power plants that you can see, but you can only bid on the top 4.
Yep.
And then same thing, moving on to once you finish that phase, and then you go on to, you do resources, then building. Yeah. So the resource phase, that market can get really cutthroat too. Like,
and it's always so the turn order is where it's important.
Yes.
Auction is like first, second, third, fourth. Buying resources is 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st.
Reverse order.
That's another word for
it. and yeah, and it can be one of those things like that becomes key, especially in mid and later game, is making sure you're in the right spot on the turn order to get done what you need to get done. Like you might want to lag behind a bit. So like, yeah, you don't always get first choice on the power plants, but like we just said, that's not always a good thing having first on the power plants, because you might get stuck with some garbage ones. But you got to be first one to buy resources. So you're like, oh, I can buy all this cheap coal, and then all of you have to pay a lot more for it because the market's, supply and demand.
Yep, definitely. It's yeah. I do like how being first in this game through most of it is like almost a curse.
Detrimental.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
It's a game where you need to decide your own momentum, and you can also affect other people's, because if you are in first, pretty much everyone's going to be one city behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're trying to make sure you balance out how many cities you have, because that'll give you more money. But the higher you are in that, the more leeway you give to other people. Because if they want to be the lowest person to have their first choice on the resource track, or even more importantly on the build track, then you need to decide when your time is to jump up into first, or when your time is to switch into the second stage. So it's kind of it's a nice balancing game. But the problem with this game that I call it the power grid complex is it's the fucking dollar short syndrome. Like, fucking dollar short.
Yeah,
at
least 3 times in the last game, I was like, I'm $1 short.
And you balance this all out, and you're like, I got this set. And you go to, like, build that last house, and you're $1 short. Or you try to buy that last coal, and you're $1 short. And then someone changes the momentum of the game, and then all of a sudden, they're starting to swing it their way.
Yeah, the last time we played, like, Ant, you even got up from the table and went and found, like, a pad of paper. You're like, no, I have to actually, like, write this math down. Like, I need to make sure.
And I was planning out my next turn in order to make sure I had enough money for that rather than the turn we were currently in.
Yeah.
This game's real hard with people that are like financial planners. Like they'll sit down and they're like marking out their third turn from there, and you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna bid 48 on this. You're like, dude, it's only a 28. And he's like, I don't care. I don't need the extra money, and you're not gonna bid on it now, are you?
Yeah, the auction can be brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Buying resources can be brutal.
Yep.
The build phase is the most brutal, in my opinion. So your first one, you kind of can go anywhere and be like, oh, I have this huge map that I can do whatever I want on.
It shrinks really quick.
Yes, and then like everyone just is right around you, and then you're like, oh, I'm fucked.
Yeah, that basically happened in the last game that I played with Ant up at the condo. One of the guys who was up there, I think his name's Chris.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, he started and he spent the extra money and built 2 places. I was like, oh, well, he's kind of up here in this corner, and the 2 places just outside of him are pretty good. I'll take those. And I was like, and then Ant will probably go somewhere down in the far opposite end. And then, nope, Ant blocked. So it was him stuck in the corner, and then me sandwiched between him and Ant. And it was like, well, shit. This is unfortunate.
And that's where you have to make some strategic choices of like, I can afford to build one city that's kind of super far, or build 2 super close cities and then probably be totally screwed.
Yeah.
So you have to know where your exit points are, because during that phase 1, because there's 3 phases, you can only build 1 power plant. What's the official term for the
Power plant?
Power plant. You can only build 1 power plant per city, and then it's 2 power plants per city, and then 3 power plants per city. So that first phase of the game, you're pretty tight with everyone else.
Yeah. I will say that that's where the gameplay gets kind of interesting with playing different player counts. We ran into this, when you play with 3 players, you're never totally blocked out of an area.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll be able to go in every city.
You'll use less areas of a board of the 6 different colors,
Yeah.
but
Whereas, like, when you play with 4, like, if you get stuck in a crummy situation, like, you might, all the cities around you might be filled up with your 3 opponents, and you don't have anywhere to go besides paying a whole bunch of connection costs to move way down the board.
yeah.
Which can super suck.
There's a lot of like placement strategy in that building phase that you need to think about of where you can get some super cheap easy ones like 3 or 4 cities, but I mean the goal of the game is to get like 17, 18, 19 if you want to win, that those can really cut you off at the very beginning of the game.
I mean, even when we played, you took the option of not connecting to the next city that was cheap. You spent the money, like 50, it was 50 in a turn.
It was like $43
to jump past me and block off my easy zone.
Yep.
And then we had to contest for that, and you cost me probably an extra 48, 50 over the rest of the game.
Yeah, because I could have had 2 more easy cities, but you would have gotten to build, and then you would have blocked off my easy route, and then I would have had to spend 3 times as much as that if I wanted to get into that whole area.
Which I had even considered the turn before, and I was calculating out. I was like, I don't think he has enough money.
Yeah,
And
I had it by like $1.
Yeah. Fucking dollar short.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes you have to make that gamble of like, I need to go like way out there or they're going to take the game because they've locked everyone else out of their area until that phase 2 hits, and then you can start kind of getting freed up there a little bit more.
But by that point, you can be way, way behind.
Yeah, because phase 1, you got to be fucking ruthless.
I think it's also kind of interesting when you get around like towards the end of the game in the phase 3 section, and I've seen this happen at least twice in games I've played. The first game where you played with me, and then even the game we just played this past weekend, where the person who triggers the end of the game doesn't win.
That was a poor choice of hits, though.
Yeah, this past
bad.
weekend it was. But yeah, so essentially the end game is triggered when somebody builds their 17th power plant.
Depending on which player count you're at.
Does it change from player?
Yes, it can go down or up by 1 or 2.
No.
Yeah. It's 15 for 5 players and 12 for 6 players.
Yeah.
That's where I was confused on the number
Oh.
when we were playing.
No, you were wrong.
But anyway, when you build whatever the number is for your player count, that triggers the end game, but the winner is who can power the most at that point. And then the tiebreaker, if you both power the same, is money. And so in this situation, he went out and built a 17th one, which triggered the end game. We both powered 15, but I had like 60 more money. Whereas if he had waited around, granted, he wasn't going to win regardless.
Yeah.
Because then if we even decided to play it out, we kind of backed up a step and then played it out. And Ant would have won the next turn again on a tiebreaker, but with like 100 money to my 80 money. And, so knowing when to end the game, like, and whether you want to be the one to do it or whether you want to bait somebody else into doing it. Like, I could have ended it. I built first in that phase. I could have ended it, but then I was worried I wouldn't have enough money because if I ended it, obviously he wouldn't have needed to build the extra one, and he could have just been like, oh, well, I'll power my 15 to match you. And, so that's an interesting kind of decision space there at the end of the game that comes into play.
Yeah.
And in this game specifically, this is the one where I trapped them both in. I had such an advantage that there was a point where I was just waiting for the last any power plant that'll power 6 cities. So I built all the way up to 11 cities or 12 cities because I knew that they each had 11 and I wasn't going to beat them with a tiebreaker anyway. And I had $400. And I was just sitting there and I was just waiting for a 6th one to kick in. And every time it would be pass, and then someone would buy, and then we'd flip over a card and it was lower. So none of them went into the market. We had five turns before the end of that game.
Yeah, because
I could have ended it on that 5th turn.
Because if you draw a power plant that's value is less than the number of cities, you just straight discard it instead of putting it into the.
Well, if you flip over a power plant and it's lower than what is ever in the future market,
because you put them in numerical order. So if you've got 10, 11, 12, 13 out there, and somebody buys 13 and then 9 comes out, 9 goes all the way to the front and it shifts everything. So the stuff that's in that, you're looking at 8, but you can only buy from the top 4. Depending on what number draws off the top, those bottom 4 might not move into the spot where you can bid on them. And that's what kept happening to Ant. He kept wanting to bid for one of the higher ones, but they just never came.
All 4 of them
crappy.
in the future market would have made me win the game a lot earlier.
Wow.
And we're getting close to ending. Like, the game could have almost ended in the second phase, which isn't very common. But then
very rare.
But
really.
then at one point, we got to a thing where, like, and that's what you were saying, Jeff. If ever the card you flip is less than the number of cities somebody has built, it gets trashed. And we trashed like 7 cards in a row doing that at one point. It was like, oh, nope, that's
they
gone.
were
Nope, that's
both
gone.
at
Nope, that's
15,
gone.
and we flipped over the next one, and it was like 12, 10, 13, 16.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, so
The game could change
yeah,
significantly.
there's tough decisions. So that's gameplay.
Indeed.
Right on. I think that brings us to final thoughts.
You didn't even talk about the other boards.
We'll talk about expansions and stuff after.
All right.
So final thoughts for Power Grid, the base game. Zach, you want to start? You've been awfully quiet for a while.
So the first couple times I played this, a year or 2 ago, I was like, this is just okay. And then I played it again, and I was like, that reaffirmed my opinion that it's just okay. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've played it, and I'm just like, I'm just bored playing this. I like the auction aspect, but the actual board didn't really give me anything.
Okay.
So like I said, I don't have anything wrong with the game. It's a fine game that I'm just like, I don't get anything from.
Right on.
So that's why pretty much why I was quiet for most of it.
Yeah.
So
Opinions.
just meh for me.
Meh.
Jeff?
I love this game. I love everything about this game. I can play this game a lot. I love the auction. I love resource management. I love the decisions you have to make on the board phase. I have a ton of promos for this game that add a lot of cool stuff into this game. There's even a really sweet 2-player promo that adds like an AI player in there, and you can add multiple AIs. It's a robot that you actually build a robot out of little jigsaw pieces, and it's super cool looking. Yeah, I like this game a lot. It's one of my favorite games. Like I said at the top, I love this game.
Personally, yeah, I remember being more on the meh side back when I very first played it. You know, I didn't remember disliking it, and it was one of those things that was just coming up on the review, and I was like, why haven't I played this game in like years? You know, and I was worried that being an older game that I'd progressed past it. But getting it to the table and playing a couple games, like, I actually I like this game. In fact, I think I probably like it more now than I did then. I've really come to enjoy, you know, the kind of tight, vicious, you know, cutthroat auctions that can happen in games like this. The fight for turn order is important. The fight for resources are important. The, you know, control over the board. All of those things are tough to manage, and it's a game where even when you might be winning, you can still regularly feel like, fuck this, you know, everybody else at the table is just constantly in my way, you know, and trying to find a way to work around that is an interesting challenge. And so I do like Power Grid, and I'm going to try and keep that in my mind the next time somebody's like, hey, you want to play Power Grid? And I'm like, no. They're like, wait, no, I actually like Power Grid. You know what? Yeah, let's rock this. So, Ant?
Like I said, this is definitely one of my favorite games as well. When you guys said that you were going to review it, I got super excited and definitely wanted to play a bunch. So much that once we played one game, I was like, oh, well, I need another board now. And I bought all of them.
Oh my god!
in one fail swoop.
And as Ant has explained to me, the other boards are super cool.
Yeah.
They're really cool.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about those here in just
Yeah.
1 second after Ant finishes his final thoughts.
But what really is great with that game is like how close it is. Like I really want to play that game sitting there with like an old timey like calculator where I can crank the paper each time. And I just want to
The green, like, accountant visor.
I just every
Zach has
time,
one of those,
every
right?
time I play that, like it's so hard for me not to do it with like pen and paper, just because it's so close that buying one extra coal for $2 could mean you miss something or you screw the next guy out of something. Because if he has to pay $3 for that coal, he's a fucking dollar short.
Yep, that's that game. One more dollar.
Is that game?
The proper term is fucking dollar short.
Dollar short. That has happened to me so many times.
I've never played another game that you've had that complex so much.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so we've mentioned a couple times here. We've played on some different maps because it's got, 4 add-on maps? 3?
I have 3 boards
And they're all double-sided.
They're all double-sided, and there's 2 that I haven't bought yet.
Yeah. So, like just recently we played on the Korea map, which has 2 different resource markets, one for north and one for south. And each turn you have to decide which one you're going to buy from, and you can only buy from that one, which can lead to some interesting decisions where, like, do I want coal more because it's cheap on the South Korea track, or do I want trash more because it's, there's enough of it available on the North Korea track?
Don't bring politics into this.
And I really like that. It was kind of awesome too, because you could look around the table what other people's power plants were and be like, oh, Ant's definitely going to go South Korea, and I think Chris is maybe going to go South Korea, so maybe I could go North Korea last, and nobody's going to take North Korea, so it'll be cheap for me at the end of my turn, so I can count on getting cheap prices. Or if I'm first in the resource thing, well, they both look like they're going to want to buy from South Korea, so maybe I should go to South Korea and clean that market out a bit and drive their prices up, which is kind of an interesting dynamic, especially because the only place you could get uranium was South Korea. So Chris had 2 reactors at one point. He's like, oh, he's got to go to South Korea every time. I'm just going to clear out everything else I can and drive his prices up.
There was a point when we were playing that game where I was sitting there for a couple minutes trying to calculate, if I go south, you're going to go south, but next turn you'll go north, and then I'll have to go south. That means I go north again, and you go south. And I was like, shit, I just need to get in here real fast. And then I got a piece of paper, and I just started writing NS, NS, SN for what turns that we're going to do the 2, because I just started calculating, if he buys maximum and he buys before me, where do I have to go, and do I have enough?
Yeah.
The other side of that was the Japan one, where you can start in 2 different spots.
You can have 2 disconnected networks, but you have to pay extra to start the second network.
Gotcha.
Yeah. One of the other ones that looked really cool is China map, and the China map, you basically start with 1 through 30 in order for the factories.
Oh.
And then 31 through 35, you mix in the level 3 card and shuffle those. Mm-hmm. And then 35 and below, you shuffle and put at the bottom. So the first chunk of the game, what order, what the value is going to be coming up, and it's just always going to be cycling, slowly higher, which I think would be an interesting, way to play.
Yeah. If you need a switch up in your power gridding, those boards are super useful.
Yeah. The England-Ireland map, if you aren't in the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Britain, you can't build nuclear power plants. And the Netherlands and Northern Europe map is similar. Unless you're in certain parts of the map, you can't build nuclear power plants, which is interesting.
Seems like it changes up the game if you need it to.
Yeah.
I think that one also came with new power plants.
Oh.
There's a couple of ones that swap this one for that number.
Oh, okay.
They're the same numbers and everything.
I've seen those before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't look through those yet, so I don't
And
know.
they're all pretty cheap too.
How much did you pay for all the
$14 a board?
Yeah.
So
Worth it.
definitely. So cost and availability for Power Grid, it is currently available in a lot of different online stores for about $30. Card House $29, Miniature Market $29, Cool Stuff $30. So you can pick it up.
It is one of those long-term legendary games like Catan, I think, where it's pretty well available at all times from everyone.
I think they call it evergreen games. They're always in season.
Yes, correct.
I'm going to believe that. You know what? I'm going to think you just made that up and be super impressed.
No, I have also heard that phrase. So
Continue to be impressed.
Yes.
Jeff, that's fine.
So yeah, go ahead and check
it.
out Power Grid if that sounds interesting to you, or play it somewhere. Have somebody teach it to you.
I would say play it before you got it, but that's just me.
Yeah.
All right, and then that wraps up Power Grid. And so next up will be Power Grid, the card game. This game was released in 2016 by designer Friedman Friese. Plays 2 to 6 players and was published by Rio Grande Games.
Oh, man.
Zach, you got a rules breakdown for us?
It's going to sound really familiar. Power Grid, the card game, has you trying to produce the most power. In the auction phase, players will be bidding for power plants in turn order, with more expensive plants producing more money. Then in the resources phase, you'll be buying in reverse turn order coal, gas, oil, and uranium, depending on what your plants require. Finally is bureaucracy. where you will spend resources to power your plants, receiving money based on how much they produce. Once the one more round card has flipped over in the building stack, you'll have one last round to increase your production. And then at the end of the round, whoever produces the most of their plants is the winner.
So yeah, that's Power Grid, the card game.
Very similar games.
Yes.
They are very similar games. You know, going into this review, that was one of the reasons we wanted to compare and contrast these is I'd been hearing a lot that the card game version of this could potentially, for some people, replace the base game. Especially if your favorite part of it was the auction. This was supposed to capture all of the auction and resource purchasing things from the game, distill it down to potentially
a much more
reasonable
time. 45 to 60 minutes is what this one's listed at versus an hour or versus
2 hours
120 minutes for Power Grid.
We had to cut out where Ant raged and tipped over your fridge in rage of how anyone could ever replace regular Power Grid.
It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. The regular you need to building.
So
It's a
Zach, let's start
spoiler
with
alert.
you.
Building.
Okay.
What was your thoughts going into this?
They made a card game version. I'll try it. Done. That's all it was. I had no preconceptions or anything.
Right on. So I played this before I had started to replay base Power Grid. And so going into it, I remember enjoying Power Grid, but I didn't remember exactly what aspects of it I liked. And so I was like, well, maybe it was the auction, and maybe this will completely satisfy everything I liked and missed about Power Grid. You know, so that was kind of my mindset going in. Ant, have you gotten to play the card game?
I still haven't played it now.
Okay. Jeff, what was your thoughts going into the card
I
game?
love Power Grid, so there's no reason I shouldn't love Power Grid, the card game.
Right on. Well, Ant, since you haven't played, I guess you can listen to us talk about it a little bit here and then see if you think this sounds like something that interests you. And give us...
I already have interjecting opinions, so continue.
So, fair enough. So, first of all, components. Fucking paper money.
Yep.
Still, again,
I feel like it was...
I think it was a nostalgia thing. They're like, oh, we're going to keep it like the original Power Grid, but...
Tee-hee, paper money.
And because you require less money in this game, they didn't even do 50s. It's just the 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s.
Yeah.
So...
Well, there's no 20s in regular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they replaced the 50 with 20.
There you go. But otherwise, yeah. And it's, the square cards, that's the entire game. It's just square cards. So I like the resources, how they have the different numbers on them, and you just turn them to show that you've used them.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to get components, like the actual wooden components that could clutter this part out.
Yeah.
Clutter it up.
The resources have been turned into cards.
Yes.
The auction is still exactly the same.
Yes.
Different power plants.
Cheaper price for them.
Yes. Everything's kind of scaled down.
Yep.
The resources I like, but it takes up a little bit of room on the table.
Especially if you're playing with
more players.
4 or more players.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it takes up a bit of room, but I don't feel like it takes up that much more room compared to like regular Power Grid.
No,
Which is a
'Cause it's got
large
that
board.
huge board.
Yeah, exactly. But it does when you go, oh, it's just a card game, and then the first time like Jeff laid it out, I was like, oh, that takes up a lot of space for that.
Yeah. It is a bit of a table hog.
But otherwise, all the components are about the same as everything.
Yes.
Right on? Rules and rules explanation.
The rulebook sucks just as much as regular Power Grid.
Pretty much.
They really just went with
consistent.
tradition across the board with this game.
Yeah. Well, so the third or the end game condition
Yeah, it's
for
one
this
more turn because there's no phase 1, phase 2,
Yeah.
phase 3. It's just sort of play the game until you hit one more turn.
But then that one is super confusing. The first time we were reading it, we just kept going
Everyone's
back
like,
and forth.
"What the fuck are you doing, Jeff? Why aren't you?" And I was like, "Here, you read it, you piece of shit!" Like, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this totally sucks."
Yeah. It was really, I just don't understand what this is talking about.
Yeah. Like whether you hit like the one more turn in the auction phase or in the bureaucracy phase,
Yeah.
like removing the lowest power plant and then removing it again after dealing out, and yeah.
One thing I do like that this one added was the first the whatever the first power plant is, the cheapest one. It has a 1 token on there that they added for this versus regular Power Grid. Is just this is always just worth
The
1.
cheapest power plant will always be 1.
Yes.
The first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an interesting rule change there.
That I would like to bring into the regular Power Grid, but I don't think it would balance well.
I do not think
it would make the game go too fast.
Yeah.
Wait, so if something besides a number 1 shows up in that spot, how does that work?
Everything
Everything is more than 1.
At the start of the round, the first one is
The
priced
lowest
at 1.
valued power plants
Gotcha.
will have a little token that
Gotcha.
makes
As soon as somebody buys that, whatever moves into its space it still costs whatever it
Yeah.
costs until the next round, and
But
then
it-
it'll get the
But
if
it
no
also
one-
means that if no one bought that one that was super cheap, you just
It goes
discard
away.
It just goes away. So
So like in regular Power Grid where everyone would have to pass to get
Yeah.
rid of the cheapest, it just happens.
people just buy other things. And yeah.
The other thing that this adds, rule-wise, that's a little bit different, is it has the deck of cards for like the first to demolish a power plant.
So that's a variant rule.
Oh, is it a variant
It is,
rule?
it's a variant, but I like it a lot.
I've
I
never
liked it
played
too.
without
Yeah.
it, so I thought it was part of the game.
So you can only have 3 power plants. The first person that replaces one gets $1. And then in the next round, the first person that does it gets $2. And then the first person to do it in round 3 gets $3, but everyone else gets 1. And you can actually bring this over into regular Power Grid, so it's a promo that can work for both versions.
I would not like that at all in the regular Power
yeah,
Grid.
yeah.
Huh. I think it...
Because it would be the fucking $1 more. Everyone gets $1 more.
Yeah. It's more of the strategy thing because you guys, when we play Power Grid, you guys buy way too many power plants.
Yeah.
You buy a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess like destruction of power plants shouldn't be as prevalent as it is. And then
is-
if you get a benefit for it,
It is very prevalent in the card game.
Yeah, it's a lot
That's why I
different.
can see it working there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. The power plants have a much. Well, they have a different function in the sense that it's a race for those to get higher, and it's always incrementally higher.
Yeah.
You're not really going to have it where like in Power Grid you can be like, oh, I'm going to buy this one that has 5. You know,
Yeah.
that can power 5 cities, and I only have 4 right now, so maybe I don't have to buy one next turn or whatever.
Yeah, that's how I play.
Yeah.
Our last time we
this
played.
one doesn't
Because-
really have it. It's
The power plants just produce that much money at
Yes.
the end of each turn. And at the end of the game, it's, how much money you produced in that very last turn is your points.
yeah, and you do have every 10 money is an extra point,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So
So the rules difference wise, that's about it.
yes,
So gameplay, we've kind of started to touch on it since it turns out rules
Yeah.
bleed into gameplay sometimes.
Yeah.
but
There were some rules differences, and I think we touched on them.
it definitely
Yeah.
plays faster, which I mean
yes,
it's meant
it does.
to.
Yeah.
The auction is pretty much the same. The turn order thing is the same. It's auction reverse order for purchasing resources.
Yeah.
There is no build phase.
I do like how the resources you'll be able to see which ones are going to be cheaper. Like usually the ones on the 4 row don't get bought, and so those are going to slide in. If it's a lot of oil, you're going to be like, oh, oil is going to be cheap next round.
Yeah, so you have 4 columns of resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then each of them has 3, 2, or 1 value, or 3 or 2 value. I don't think there might be uranium that has 1.
Yeah, uranium has one, but yeah.
And it's always at its highest value, and it just gets out there randomly. And it's that resource order is super important in the card game because you can get some good value stuff if you're buying resources first. Also, there's natural gas instead of trash in this.
Yep.
Yeah. One thing I don't like about the resource phase in this game is because of the way the cards have different values on them, like say 3 through 1, and if you can only hold say 2 coal and there's a 3 coal in that first spot and you buy it, you only take the 2 and that excess 1 slides over to the 1 Electra spot that somebody can buy 1 for 1.
And that's the only way that the 1 column is
Yeah.
ever used,
Well,
is if there's like a surplus.
And that's the thing I don't care for in the card game. You
I found it happens so rarely that it's not a big deal.
And I liked it because then it would be like if there's a 2 there and a 3, and I can only hold 2, I'm going to buy the 2, or I'm going to buy the 3 just so that 1 goes into the 1. So if someone else wanted to buy 3 behind me, that they have to pay more.
Yeah, I still I prefer the board game version where it's got the actual market where every time you buy, the next one is more expensive, period.
I mean, not always the next
More or
one.
less,
yeah,
like 1 or
But
2.
it's a progressing scale.
No, it is. Yeah.
'Cause on this, the resources are just placed randomly, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
number is random. each
The
time?
number is always highest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's placed random in terms of what's more expensive.
where they're placed
so
on
to
the
speak.
cost
Yeah.
track, the amount is always maxed
Yes.
for each card.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then there is sort of a phase 1, 2, and 3. The first time you get rid of the resource deck, you shuffle in like the single plus cards.
Better resources,
Yep.
basically.
And then the next time you go through the whole deck, you'll put in the 2 plus card.
which are
And-
better resources.
Yeah.
Again.
So you get slightly better resources as the game goes on.
Yep.
Shuffled in there. But there's only like 1 of each.
Yeah.
So you'll get an extra 4 cards and then an extra 4 cards.
Yep. So
There is no build phase. That is the major.
yeah, gameplay. That's the biggest gameplay difference. I mean, because that's a huge money, not sink, but a huge like money cost you have to account for in the board game that is now
Strategy.
just gone.
So you don't.
Game.
So you have. I think that's one of the reasons why you deal with so much less money than you do in there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you don't have to worry about a map or tubes or cities or.
I mean, also technically, if you can't power anything, you don't get any money like you do.
Yeah, you have to power to get money. You don't just power 0 and get 10.
Yep.
Money is crucial
But
in this game.
it's so easy to power at least.
No, I know. I'm just
one or
saying.
two.
I'm just
Like
saying
this-
that there's no. You can't be like, I'm gonna wait a turn
yeah.
and get something. Because if you mess up somehow, if you have all coal and you forget that you're first, and then everybody else buys coal beforehand, then you just don't get any money that turn.
Yeah.
I mean, powering the power plants, you get a certain amount of money, and then you start over the next turn.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
And it's yeah, that's it.
Right on. So, final thoughts.
I like this game more than regular Power Grid.
What?
Oh shit!
How does it even make sense?
I don't get enough out of the build to
Justify the time.
justify the time. Yeah, like the time that said I love Power Grid and would still love to always play Power Grid, but like if I have the option to play the card game, I would play the card game.
No, you're wrong.
Zach.
I agree. I could definitely be like if someone goes, "Hey, would you want to play Power Grid the card game?" I'd be like, sure, why not? Because I've enjoyed it enough, especially like a game night or something like that. Power Grid, like, hey, you want to go? You know, especially game night. Do you want to play Power Grid? No, it's
Too much.
way too long for what I get out of the game, which is mainly the auction mechanic. And so that's when I was just like, oh, they just have that part? Cool.
I can't not shake my head as you guys say this.
That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, I did enjoy every time I played this. It's always close, which I like.
It is too close always at the end of the game.
It pretty much is either somebody won by 1 point or ties and then money.
Yep.
And I've seen it. One thing I do like is that money can equal points to an extent.
It's 10-1.
10-1, which is still hard, but still you can be like, oh, I was a little short on getting those production, but I did have enough money saved to help bump me up.
Yep.
So
So my enjoyment of the card game peaked after the first play. But when I hadn't played Power Grid in a while, I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. And then I played Power Grid again, and it was like, oh yeah, no, I don't need the card game anymore. And then I played the card game a couple more times. I was like, yep, nope, done with that. So I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I have zero desire to ever play the card game again. I would play the board game again. Card game, I'm done with it. It feels like a watered down, generic, like it's
getting cruel.
it misses like after playing the board game a few more times, especially on the variant maps with the new rule stuff like the multiple markets or different.
that's the only thing that actually that sounded interesting somewhat is when you were talking about the new map changes. I was like, oh, that sounds
I would still
better.
rather play base.
No, that's fine.
Power Grid.
I think we can get down to it when we.
Yeah. So the card game, it increasingly every time I played it, it increasingly fell more and more flat. It really felt like it was always the same thing, and that from the start. It was who got what order the power plants came out into where people were able to buy the right ones, and it felt way too luck dependent. Like the board, having the control on the board of where to place your things and how to move around and where to do the kind of area control aspect gives you enough to mitigate the randomness of the power plants a little bit more than happens in the card game.
You're still comparing and contrasting.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so
And of what we've talked about of the card game,
How much do you hate it?
I would totally play the
Okay.
card game. I just think that the compare and contrast is more of what I want to be talking about right now.
Yeah.
But
So-
for the card game, because I have been looking, I know Power Grid well enough, and I've been looking at the pictures of it, and I totally understand how the game plays. I would like playing this. The art looks kind of cool, but it's a little networksy, as the
bold
people and
colors,
stuff. Yeah.
small detail.
Okay.
What I don't like about this game is what I'm seeing as completely unpredicted resource costs into the next turn. You start your turn with known resource costs, so you can plan your auctioning, but planning the auctioning in regular Power Grid also requires you to count what resources will be replenished for the next turn. Mm-hmm. So I feel like
And then
that
all you'll know is what wasn't bought.
what I do not like about this so far is, besides the fact that it doesn't have building, is the resource track just seems too arbitrary.
Yeah, because everything in 4 and 3 and 2 kind of just shuffles up into cheaper and then gets drawn.
So it's not. Yeah, it's not like it won't get completely replaced.
yeah.
But I see exactly what Ant's saying.
No,
Like,
I can see that.
in
Yeah.
the base power grid, you have
7 coal or whatever is going to
You know
come
what I
out.
mean?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but so real quick before we move on into full on, going at each other's
Rip
throats
this
over this
shit apart.
comparison.
Yeah.
Cost and availability for Power Grid, the card game, it's also super available. It's running less than $15 pretty much everywhere. Cool stuff, miniature market, card house,
Pretty
all
much
have
brand
it for
new.
less than $15.
Yeah, it's super new.
Which is it's crazy. Both of those are a lot cheaper than I was expecting when you're actually talking about it. I was expecting like 20 to 25 and then 40 to 45
Yeah.
for those. So I'm glad that they are cheaper than I thought.
Yep. All right. Well, that wraps up our review of Power Grid, the card game. And now, without skipping a beat, while we're all still really fired up about it, let's get into the
Real hot.
comparison.
Real hot.
Yeah.
I brought this set of knives for everyone to take. Please hold them to each other's throats.
Okay. Dibs on Adrian's.
So,
Yeah, me too.
whoa.
Yeah, Ant, you want to join in with us?
I guess
Flip this table right at both of you.
I guess Ant gets guest benefit of not having people try to murder him.
Yep.
Who else would give them beer?
It's true.
It's true.
All the cinnamon flavored.
I'm pretty sure Zach and Jeff are drinking my beers tonight.
No, I was drinking Megan's beer.
Oh, so is he.
She's gone now, so
Yeah.
it's my beer.
And it had her
Oh,
name
she
on
left
it.
it here.
It had her name on it. So
It did
Literally.
literally had her
Did
name
have
on
her
it.
name on it.
Or however HW is.
Anyway, on to the comparison stuff here. So it was hard not to get into this in my final thoughts for the card game because my final thoughts for the card game are so based on my thoughts for the base game. But yeah, the card game just feels lacking after playing especially playing them one after the other, like in two, like play one day and then the next day play the other one. It really makes it very clear how much for me the actual build phase and the board control aspect of Power Grid is integral to why I like that game.
I think a lot of it, I think the main difference on whether you like the card game or the board game more is how important the building is to you.
Yeah.
Because I know, our friend Bob, when we were talking about it, and then he's like, there's no building? I don't even want to play it then.
Yeah.
Because he just loved that so much that trying to play the game without it was, like you said, it just feels completely lacking.
Why bother?
Whereas, like me and Jeff, or I know, me specifically, I don't give a shit about the building. And so I only really cared about the actual auctioning of the power plants and the resources. And so that's why I was like, oh, they took out all that stuff. And mainly because I always felt like the building made it take so much longer.
The building is where a good chunk of the time difference comes in. However, I feel like having the building phase, because building, you're going to pay a certain amount to build in any city and then the connection costs. And that being an additional factor in your spending makes the auction that much more tight. Like you're sitting there you're really can I afford to go one higher on this auction and still build the 2 power plants I want and then buy resources? Whereas this one, you're you can glance real quick at the resource track and where you are and be like, oh, well, I should be able to buy my resources, no problem. I can go 3 or 4 or 5 higher or whatever. The auction never felt as tense in the card game as it did in the board game. So it felt like every aspect was watered down, and then one of my favorite aspects was just gone entirely.
Well, I know for me, I don't really plan. I never was like, oh, you're right. You're trying to 3 turns down. That's never me in a game. And so it felt the same.
I'm also the guy that counts cards.
Yes,
so.
exactly. No, yeah. But yeah, for me, it felt the auction both times. It just felt like I was spending more money in Power Grid. That's, for me, the only difference.
What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, everything's cut down cost-wise and everything like that. So, but I enjoy the build in Power Grid, but I enjoy also not having it there and being able to play a game Power Grid in 45 minutes. I would think that this game could get a little more interesting with like a small expansion that would change up the power plant
That
deck
would be
a little
yes.
bit.
A
Yeah.
little expansion that lets you build things.
That's a tiny little board.
No, here's just it's the expansion is just the board from Power Grid.
No, but what I could see that would interest me a little bit more would be a expansion that instead of having the resource cards, replaced it with a Power
resource
Grid style
track.
resource track that got a set amount added each
That
turn.
sounds no.
I mean, you wouldn't even need the same track. You could just have a little ticker that you move down a track.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something like that would.
Then I would just play Power Grid.
Well, let's just
that's
play
what you should
Power
do
Grid.
anyway.
I don't want to play Power Grid, but that's not a problem with me. Like I said, I like having that bit of randomness of.
I hate randomness.
I know you do, but that's why I love that you have a little bit of knowledge of things that are coming. Like I see some oil and I
Yeah.
see gas,
And-
but there's not any coal, and then for whatever reason, like almost no coal comes, and you're just like, oh god, I need to get a different power plant, and that's why it's nice to diversify. And then like that one time that you got screwed over because there was no.
That was the nail in the coffin.
Oh, I'm sure
for
it was.
Power Grid the card game.
Yeah. Well, for me, that was just you shouldn't have gone too into nuclear power, especially with how I always see like 1, maybe 2 on a row, or 1, 2 in a given set. I always felt like that one was you get one, like just get one, and whenever you can buy you buy as much as you can immediately.
Yeah.
So you can
'Cause there's a chance that you might
ride
not
out
see another.
the shortage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I like the resource in the card game just as much as the regular game. I mean, you're buying like maybe a 3 coal at 2 or 3 coal at 4. I mean, it's not a huge money difference like it is in the board game. Where you can go start sinking down way into that track where you're buying trash at 3 for 7 each, and you're spending 21 on trash, and you don't really come into this game with spending 21 on any resources at all,
Because that would bankrupt you no matter
and it's
what.
almost like impossible to spend that much on resources.
Yeah.
It's a much smaller scale game.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice though is that in Power Grid, the card game, you always wanted to buy a better
Power plant.
each turn because that's all like
That's all that matters at
That's
the
all that
end.
matters at the end, and you always want to get ones that have like 8, 7, 8, 8, 9, 8, 7, 9, something like that. So
999, 9, 10, 10, 8, 9.
yes, whereas with Power Grid, you could get like if you got a really good one near the beginning, you could maybe not buy
Just
one for a
ride
while.
that to the
Yeah.
middle of the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of like the strategic planning on it, when to buy, when to build, how much resources to buy. But I mean, like if we're still talking about the resource track in general, like having that known information to everyone means that everyone can plan it out. But then also you need to plan, do I buy that extra one so you can't?
Yeah.
Or do I need to buy this? Or do I need to make sure I don't buy one extra one so I can afford this next thing?
And that can happen in the card game as well, where you can load up to be like, yeah, I can buy that extra coal, and now there's no coal, haha.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little different, and I think this kind of, in addition to what you said, Zach, earlier, there's 2 things I think that are going to determine which one you like better. Which part of the game is your favorite? If it's the auction, you might like the card game more. If it's the board, you're certainly going to like Power Grid more.
Yeah.
The second part is whether you are like more tactical or like me and Ant more strategic. If you're short-term planning versus long-term planning. If you're long-term planning, the board game is key because you have all that extra known information about how resources are going to come out and how that market is going to fluctuate a little bit better. Whereas in the card game, you just might get unlucky and no fucking nukes come out this turn. Fuck you.
That's what you got for buying 2. You had 2 of your power plants were the rarest ones.
That works great in the regular game.
Well, this isn't the regular game.
But then even the regular game, if I see he has 2 and I'm lower than him, I buy 1 and I just keep buying resources.
Well, I mean,
just to burn 'em up.
only if you have a nuke plant.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
But that's different because then at that point, that's where fighting for the battle of getting myself down so you're not buying first. That's where that tug and pull kind of comes in that I didn't feel as much in the card game either. I felt like the board game was way more strategic.
Well, I mean, the card game is definitely a lighter one.
Yes.
It's I think it's like 2.29 to
2.42 for the card game
and then 3.29
versus 3.29
Yeah.
for the board game. So almost an entire point on a 5
Yeah,
point
no,
scale.
the board definitely adds adds that complexity to it. It's just, like I said, whether you think it's worth it or not. And it's the same sort of thing for me, like Battlestar Galactica versus...
Oh, you're going to start throwing fists.
Yeah.
Say it. Say it.
Ant's favorite game ever.
Well, after Blood Bowl.
Yeah. It just determines, it just depends on what I get out of the game. And if there's a game that is a lot longer that I don't get anything more out of, then I would rather play the shorter one.
One word. Airlocks.
Yeah. I did think the expansion added to that game, but it still wasn't enough.
Yeah. So, all right. To wrap this up, we had, we put out on Twitter as we've been doing each week. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, you should, to get these updates about what we're going to be talking about and get your input. But we asked people for, any questions or anything they had for us as we reviewed these games. And we got a few responses. First up from Matt at TLOMDR. He asks, honest question, did you ever feel like you needed to change out the money? And if so, what came to mind?
That has always crossed my mind at all times. Every time I touch that money, like, I need to replace this money.
For both or just for the base game?
Both. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
90% of paper money just needs to go immediately.
I have no idea what I would replace it with. Metal tokens, like coins.
That's what I was looking
chips
at
or something like that.
The scythe coins. I was like, maybe they'll just work okay.
Yeah, they would work fine.
You could probably even just buy like plastic toy money that would be 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s. I mean, it'd be better than paper money.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything is better than paper money.
Every single time I hold that money in my hand, I just instinctively want to just crush it, just to be.
So the only thing I was trying to find is I'm trying to find a resource that would be good to hide.
Yeah,
Yeah, coins clinging together.
Yeah.
The nice thing is the money is just under the size of my cell phone,
That's
so I can
what
just
I
set
did
my
too.
cell phone on top of my money pile.
That's exactly what I did.
I put my wallet out on the table because it's a fold wallet, and just put the money in the wallet, and like.
Well, I made the mistake the last game too. Is as we were drinking, so someone texted me and I grabbed my phone and picked it up, and my money went everywhere. I was too lazy to pick it all up because I had hundreds.
Oh wow!
You have $400. What are you
ridiculous.
doing?
There's a lot of ones in that stack though, and then just like 2 turns later, Chris looks down. He's like, "Is this your 10?" I was like, "Yeah, probably." And I looked under my chair, and there was like 6 or 7 more dollar bills under there.
Yeah. So you're on the same boat. You want to upgrade the money?
I would definitely like to upgrade the money. If anything, even just like better paper money. That money is so bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Cardboard tokens that have the electro symbol on them. Like, yeah.
So that brings us to the next Twitter response here. This is from @PatheticLifeform.
Okay.
Who is happens to be our personal friend Wesley,
Who has been on before.
Yes.
Yes, and he asks, "Why do you think regular Power Grid is better than TCG? And why are you always wrong?" So I take it that means he sides with you guys, that he likes the card game more. In which case, I would respond that I'm not ever wrong.
But then you're wrong saying that, and so it's.
Yep.
There's nothing you can do to really respond to that, Adrian.
The board game's better.
Wrong.
Wrong. We also, courtesy of Patrick from What Did You Play This Week, got an email from Jeff regarding this game. So,
And if you would like to also send us emails, it is emails@milehighgameguys.com.
yes.
This one is titled Power Grid Comments and Questions. I really like Power Grid, although I found the card game boiling the game down to the auction element. I think it loses fun of the mapping aspect and balancing of funds required to auction buy resources and expand the fun of the game. How heavy do you consider Power Grid? I asked Edward to discuss on their show sometime, but I do not recall if they ever did. I say medium heavy, fairly straightforward, just a bit mathy.
More than a bit.
Yeah.
I think the mathiness is how heavy you.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's otherwise it's actually not
No,
too
it's a
bad.
straightforward one,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you discussing Power Grid Classic or Deluxe? I've not studied the changes enough to notice the difference, and other resource bits other than resource bits do not see it as a deluxe version. If I were new to the game, sure, I'd buy the most recent version, but I have the old one and can get the expansion maps, etc. I have my own version of upgraded bits from somewhere at Gen Con. Yeah, it's just upgraded resources. We kind of talked about it at the beginning.
Yeah, and realistically, if I'm buying, like I've never owned Power Grid. If I was buying it, I'd buy the old version because it's $20 cheaper than the deluxe version right now.
Yeah, and I don't think you get much extra. You don't get $20 more.
No.
Yeah.
The coal looks like little poops, though.
That's true. That is true.
The card game was okay. I found the randomness of the market frustrating at times. In the base game, it is quite predictable. I also found the scoring almost too tight and led to the cash tiebreaker every time. Not that the original game isn't immune to this. As a game by itself, as a kind of heavier, lighter filler, I like to have it available, but it isn't something I want to play much more of. Patrick.
Yeah. So
he goes with you guys.
yes. So yeah, to kind of to get back to his actual the first part of his questions. How heavy do I consider this game? The card game, not at all. I wouldn't even call it like a light heavy. Like it's not.
It would be a medium.
Yeah, and even the board game, I think it's on the heavier end of medium, but I would still say it's medium, not medium heavy. Like there's the rule complexity is not there, the depth of choice isn't really there.
It's the mathiness that basically brings it up.
I think it makes it feel heavier than it actually is, trying to math out multiple turns in a row.
Like I said, I would love playing that game with calculators.
Yeah. I do know, as somebody who listens to Heavy Cardboard pretty avidly, they have not covered Power Grid.
I can see them.
And I know it actually was funny. It just came up last week in one of the 3 Heavy Cardboard Slack channels that I'm in. People are talking about how everyone considers Power Grid a heavier-esque game, and they're all like, no.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely not.
But I mean, that's people who are reside on the ridiculously heavy end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the heavier end of medium, but I think it's definitely still medium.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah, like we said, we were discussing classic throughout this. None of us have the deluxe version, and I don't think it's worth the extra money.
Unless you just really want those for whatever reason.
Yeah.
No. And then I think that, pretty much Patrick's feelings on the card game versus the base game, those are right in line with what I think. It's got a little bit too much randomness, and in my experience, it is too tight. It feels like it comes down to who gets lucky on that last round with where things show up for buying. Like there's some, skill in making sure you have the money to buy the good stuff when it comes up, but it's really going to be who is able to get the best stuff on the last round is probably going to win.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Or you just buy out all their resources so they can't power all their power plants, and then they're totally fucked.
You can also do that.
Yep.
Or they could just not have any of their resources show up because they're random shuffle of the deck.
Indeed.
Tears.
Do you have a cup for his tears too, Ant? Or
one other thing that
watch out though, they will randomly come out in different spots.
So also on Twitter, not so much a question, but of Dyson Men tweeted us and linked us to their blog post on Power Grid versus Power Grid, the card game. They said they have a few thoughts on it here, and I'll link that blog in our show notes for this discussion. But they said, we wonder if you'll come to the same conclusions. And I read through that, and essentially, yes, I do come to the same conclusions they do. The card game feels like a lighter, watered-down version of the board game, and as such is not nearly as satisfying. That's, spoiler alert, that's what their blog post ultimately boils down to. But much more eloquently than that, so go read it. They're good with words.
it's a solid one.
Oh, man.
Wordsmith Adrian.
Yes.
At it again.
Other than all of that Power Grid related stuff, nothing else email or...
Nope,
I do not believe
Twitter-wise.
so. Nope.
That's it.
So people should send Jeff emails.
We got Twitter things at least.
We did?
That
Yes.
satisfies me slightly.
Yeah. And you got an email. Nice, good one from Patrick.
And email.
So if you want to email Jeff, as he mentioned earlier, you can get him at...
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can tweet us. I'm at MHGameGuys.
I'm Zach_MHGG.
And I'm Jeff_MHGG.
Ant, you use the Twitter?
I'm Barrel Overlord.
And you can see him lug around giant, massive, colossal casks of wood.
Fooders. They're fooders.
What are they?
Fooders.
Fooders?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a
fodder.
word.
Oh, I change it every other month to confuse people.
Congratulations.
April is fooders.
Mission success. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, all of those as at Mile High Game Guys. We are on Board Game Geek as Mile High Game Guys. I don't have the Geek Guild number pulled up.
That's fine.
2731. I just remembered it. Guild.
That's-
Board Game Geek Guild.
sounds like something that
2731.
You're looking at me like I should be impressed.
Sounds like something you've
I'm impressed.
randomly remembered multiple times. So I'm going to say that's accurate.
Yeah.
So go ahead and jump on over there, interact with us. I don't know.
Okay.
I've been Adrian.
I'm still Zach.
And I'm Funkenschlag Jeff.
And I'm
And thanks for joining us, Ant.
Yeah, thanks for
Thanks for
joining us.
listening, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.